Hey guys, welcome to the Whimsical Workshop. In this video, we're going to be doing month 6 of our Imagine quilt. So let's get started. Yay! It is hard to believe that we're already at month 6 for this. And I know it's been a while since I've been doing some other videos, but honestly, between my travel schedule and the block of the month, it's been a lot of work on my end to get things done. We will be getting back to our regular scheduled videos here shortly. I am heading out on my last big trip this week. It's a 3-leg trip to Oregon, Seattle, and then to teach on a cruise through Alaska. And then I am back to kind of normal till until next year. So anyway, today, let's get started on block 6. I'm going to show you how to put this block together. And the bonus project this month is a tote bag with this beautiful flower block on the front and the back of the square tote. It is big enough that you could slide your quilt blocks in. It's going to be a 15-inch square. But let's get to how to make the blocks first. Then we'll talk about doing some thread painting. Well, not really thread painting, but decorative stitches on here using our beautiful, yummy colors for this month. And we will then get into the tote. So, for those of you who are just joining us, this is the Imagine Block of the Month program that we partnered with MulQueen Sewing here in Phoenix. And they are doing a Thread Collector Club. So every month you will get 3 beautiful 50-weight large spools of Aurifil thread curated by myself to go with our Imagine quilt block. When you join the Thread Collector Club, you then get my pattern each month, which shows you how to make the block as well as a bonus project. So far we've done a journal cover, we've done a bench pillow, we did a vinyl zipper pouch. So the idea is if you don't want to make this big, large quilt, you can do the secondary projects through the year. It is just to get you to open up and use your threads. You certainly aren't going to use all this thread in a project. You can go to the MulQueen's website, which I'll put here below, and you can sign up and you can go all the way back to the beginning and start even though we're on month 6, or you can pick and choose which months you want to do. They've been very flexible and very nice. And it is a great program to build up your library of 36 beautiful threads. Now, while I curated these threads to match my project, I did take into consideration using neutrals in the collection. I think there's some variegateds coming up, but I wanted it to be a well-rounded, balanced color palette of threads that you can then go and use when you go sew other projects. So that's a little story behind the Imagine Block of the Month and the MulQueen Sewing Aurifil Thread Collector set. I am tripping over my tongue today. And I definitely think it's a great value to sign up, because if you get these 3 and my pattern, that is well over a $60 value. I think it's almost $65 value, and you end up paying $49.95 I think right now, but I could be wrong. So just go to the website, get all the details, get the pricing, and go from there. So let's move on to how to make this beautiful flower block. Alright, so I've gone ahead and I've stepped out what we need to do for our block for the purpose of making this a short and sweet video for you guys. We're doing a lot of the same thing, and I want to use the time for this video mainly to talk about the decorative stitching I'm putting on the block to make it pop and just be that much more spectacular, as well as how to pop together the tote using bag foam if you haven't used foam for the inside of your bags. I've only done a couple, but I do love how it makes the bag look. So we will be doing that for most of the video. So let's first just run through how we make the block. And this is the block without any decorative stitching on it yet. So we just have this. And you can see I've made several, because you will need, if you're going to make both projects, you will need 1 block for your quilt, and you will need 2 blocks for your bag, because we're going to make it back and front. I just think it'll look nicer that way. So first things first is we need to make this corner unit. And how we do that is our favorite technique, which is flip and sew. So you will mark your triangles or however you want to stitch them. I recommend watching the first 5 videos. We cover flip and sew in 3 or 4 different techniques. Pick the one that you're doing that you love, and we're going to flip and sew. Now, here is the warning for you guys. Every pattern should have a warning, right? All right, so you need to make 4 of these per block and 4 of these per block. You want to make sure that you are sewing the diagonals correctly. On this guy, it goes from the upper left to lower right, and on this guy, it goes from the upper right to the lower left. Make sure you flip it out. Don't cut it until you double check this. Once you cut that back piece away, then you got to go cut more fabric. But if you pay attention to this, all 4 corners are the same and all 4 corners are the same. We rotate the whole unit to get the look of the block, just to keep things simple. So again, flip and sew here, you're just putting one guy on and it'll look like this. And then on this guy, you're flip and sewing the other way, and you get 4 of these for the block. And then once you have them, you're going to take your 3.5 inch square and you will sew this rectangle, the shorter rectangle, onto here, making sure to do the mostly purple edge and not the half edge. This is the outer edge of our block. So you want to make sure that you are sewing the right side. And then down here, same thing. You don't want to do this, you want to do this. You want the right angle of the purple to touch in the corner to give you that chevron shape, which looks like this. So you're going to make 4 of these for the block. And then once you have those 4, you're going to make these green points. And those are done, guess what? With flip and sew. Except this time we're doing one on one corner. You will need to trim away the excess, press that open before adding the second one on the other corner. But the plus side to this unit is you have to sew it in both directions, so it doesn't matter. And you will flip that out, and then you need to make 4 of these for the block. So there's the units, the pieced units. Then to actually make the quilt block, I guess I sewed them all together. All right, here is the quilt block without the applique. Let's move all this out of the way. Okay, so we have our 4 corner units, and we have our 4 green units, and then we have a center square. And I cut the center square out of purple in case somebody didn't want to go on and do the applique. They just wanted to leave it a nice simple piece block that gives you contrast and it looks good. But when I sewed this, how we did it is when I sewed these guys to the green, I pressed towards the green. This guy should be pressed towards the green too. And if you ever get a twisty seam like that, you know, don't make your life insane. You could fix it, but you can also snip almost up to that seam. It's one little snip. It is not going to hurt your quilt. All right, so now we know that goes that way. So what I did is I always pressed towards the green. So these are towards the green, these are towards the green, and these are towards the green. Then when I sewed the whole rows together, I pressed those towards the green. So green, green, green. That's what you got to remember. Press towards the green. And that will give you a nice flat, my threads are running away. That will give you a nice flat block to work with. So then once we've done that, we have our finished pieced block. And if you're one of those anti-appliqueurs out there, you would be, first of all, you probably wouldn't be doing this quilt. But if you just want to do the tote bag, you could just use this shape and not have to go forward. But if you are willing to take the plunge with me and do applique, what I did is we have a circle. Again, I'll refer you back to video 1 where I cover how to trace, prep, press, and finish fusible applique. I didn't want to be redundant in every video about that. So we have our circle that we would press down, and then I liked the daisy centered, like points to point. You could just do it this way too. It's whatever your heart desires, but I seem to be pretty pretty much this is the way I like it. And then we have our little center circle. So you would go ahead and you would iron these down, and then we are now to where we are with this block. So the first thing we need to do before we do any decorative stitching is we need to stitch this puppy in place. So what I'm going to use is I'm actually going to use this lovely lilac that comes in the box. This is 2560. Pull this out. And I'm going to use that to stitch the daisy. It's very light and it'll add a little interest to my daisy. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with decorative stitching, and I'm going to do the decorative stitching on the green with the purple and on the purple with the green, and that'll pull all three colors in. This is also the thread I would use. The light purple is what I would use to piece your block this month. You certainly can use a neutral to piece it. It's totally up to you, but if you get your box and you only want to use that, you would do that. Now you're wondering, what about this orange? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull an orange from an earlier month. I think month 1 has the orange. Once I pull it, I'll tell you what it is, and I will finish that in orange. You could also pull one of the bright yellows if you want a contrasty center. It's totally up to you, but again, I'll tell you which box it came out of, and it will be in the directions which box it came out of. So I'm going to go ahead, finish up these blocks, get them to the decorative stitch part, go over that with you, and then we're ready to make a tote bag. So let's get started on that. All right, so I have finished all of my edges. Oh, you know, I didn't do this one, but I will. I finished these edges with the blanket stitch. I used from month 3, I used 1133 for the center, and I used 2560 for the flowers, and I will be using 2525 for this outer circle. But the reason I hadn't done it is I wanted to load it up, do the circles, and then I was going to do a decorative stitch coming out of leaves. I was just going to find a stitch on my machine that's leaves. And then this guy, we're going to do another one here out of, oh, not this one, out of the green. The green, so it'll be purple and green on purple. So, and this one is a variegated. I was talking about earlier about, oh, I hope we get a variegated. Well, that one is a variegated. Oh, hang on. There we go. That is one of my favorite green variegateds. You can use this for a lot. You can use it for quilting. You can use it for applique. It's great for stems and leaves. It's also good for stitching, like thread painting or decorative stitching. So that one's going to go there. So what I want to show you before we do that, let me get these threads out of here, is before you do any decorative stitching, you are going to need to put a stabilizer on the back of your piece to hold it in place so that when you're stitching it doesn't gum up and bunch up and everything. I do like the Totally Stable. This is an iron-on tearaway stabilizer. Again, if anything, I'll leave it for the bag ones because it's going to add more rigidity to the bag itself. And for the quilt, I will pull it off and get rid of it. But the first time you wash it, it kind of dissolves anyway. I am going to put it over the whole block because we are doing the 4 corners and these. So add your stabilizer next. Then we're going to go ahead, I'm going to do my decorative stitches and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so before I got my stabilizer on the back, and now before I go over to do my decorative stitching, I took a ruler and drew a straight line at the center points, and then in here I did 3, it finishes 1.5 inches, so I went 3/4 up and drew my V. It's hard to probably see on here. Let's see if you can see it like that. And now I have a center line to do my decorative stitching on. I am probably going to also go through here and measure and mark where I want to stop it so it's even all the way around. So I've got them all marked. I'm going to go get them stitched and then I will come back and show you the next step. So we've got all of the decorative stitching done. I did just a little daisy there and I did a leaf print there. I kind of wish this was a little bit more of a dense flat leaf, but you can pick whichever stitch you like. These were just ones on my machine. I do want to talk about the feet and how to keep this straight. Now we already marked everything, and then over here from this corner point out I measured 2.5 inches and I put a tick mark so that they'd all be consistent. But on your sewing machine feet, and I have a Bernina, so you probably have a different one, but can you see right there? There is a, focus for me. There, there we go. See how there's like a center dash right there? That center dash can go right on the line, and that'll help you stay on track. This is an open toe foot if you're looking for the brand for your sewing machine, and I love it for blanket stitching and any kind of decorative stitching because you can see in here all the way. There's nothing obscuring your view. You can just see what you're stitching. So for Bernina, it's a 20D. Whatever one you need, it's called an open toe foot. Now this one I think is called a top stitch foot. It has a, turn it sideways here. See that little flangey thing there? And then that's what it looks like from the top. If you can't see the center line, you can use this foot and run that flange right along the line, and that will keep you on track as well. So these are 2 sewing machine feet that I'm pretty sure are pretty standard for most sewing machines, but that will help you stay on your line and keep it straight. So to do decorative stitching, 1, the most important thing is to put stabilizer on the back. Number 2, use an open toe or a top stitch foot to keep you on line. And 3, make sure to mark your straight lines to make sure you stay on track. If you're just doing the quilt, voila, that is the block. This is block 6 and it's ready to go. You can just tear away the stabilizer on the back, or you can spritz it with water and it'll come off a little easier, but you can just get rid of it on here. So there is my block for my quilt. I'll tear that off later. Now, if you're moving on to the tote, you will need 2 of these. So I'm probably going to pull most of this off, but I'm not going to be super picky if there's areas of it here because it's going into a tote bag, and if anything, it'll just add a little more rigidity, which is totally fine. So I'm going to go ahead, go get the pieces cut for the tote as listed in the pattern, and then I will be back to show you how to put that together. Alright, so I've got the outer bag pieces cut. So this is a 12.5-inch square, and we're going to sew a 4 by 12.5 on each side, 2 by 12.5 at the top, or 2 by 19.5 at the top. Don't worry, this is the seam allowance. And a 4 by 9.5 here at the bottom. This is going to be the bag front, and I'm going to repeat it to make the bag back. So I'm going to make the bag front and back, and then I cut a 4-inch by width of fabric strip, and we're going to go over to the ironing board. We're going to iron this in half like that. Then we're going to iron these in like that, and they're going to roll it. And that's going to be our strap, and I'm going to top stitch down each side. I'm going to keep my bag with short straps, so I'm only using 1 strip, but you certainly could do 2 strips to make your straps like a shoulder bag. This one's going to be more like a little handle bag. So I'm going to get that done, and I will be back to show you how to do the lining. Alright, so I have the bag front done. I have the fronts and backs done. And I cut a piece of the bag foam. I'm not really sure what the correct name of it is, but my MulQueen does have it. And I cut it to the same size as my bag. Now the skinny strip is the top of the bag and the wide strip is the bottom, because this is where we're going to do a box seam at the bottom and bring in the extra fabric so the frame is the same all the way around. But for right now, this is what we've got. So what I'm doing is I'm going to put this on my foam, and I'm going to clip the top edge with Wonder Clips. They're just easier than pins right now. So now we've got that clipped. I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to use like 1/8 of an inch to tack it together, because this is not fusible foam. You can buy fusible foam, but this one isn't. My mistake. Anyway, so here we go. I've just stitched the top of it. And then I'm going to, if I need to, I'm just going to smooth this out. And this extra is just my sloppy sewing. You can trim up the foam if you want, but I'm not going to worry about it. Then what I'm going to do once this one is sewn is I'm going to put them right sides together, and I'm going to sew them. So let me put those aside, because I've got one here. Now this one is sewn, I did not stitch this top down, so that's why there's clips still there. You should stitch it down. So now I've got this all sewn and ready to go, but I need to do a box corner seam on this. So what you're gonna need is a ruler and a pen, and this is a 4-inch wide bag, so half of that is 2 inches, and that's when I'm gonna cut these corners. So I'm going to draw a box that's 2 inches on one corner and 2 inches on the other. And it doesn't have to be like super accurate, but it helps. They have to match, but if it's like 1 3/4, just make sure they match on both sides. Then once you have that done, making sure again that the top is at the top, you cut out this box. Now I find it easier to control with scissors. So there we go, that's gone, that's garbage. And the same thing on this side. That is cut out. And then what you do to do a box seam is you're going to open this up and you're going to align the side. Again, I'll lay it flat. Here's the side seam, here's the bottom seam. We're going to align those two. And you need to make sure when you open this up that you're grabbing the fabric and the foam, and you're just going to align it. And then I'm going to clip this. Again, making sure I've got my fabric caught in there. It's real easy to get that fabric bag kind of caught in there. And I'm kind of squishing the seam in opposite directions. And then I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew it using a 1/4 or 3/8 inch seam. Doesn't matter as long as it's the same seam you used all the way around. I tend to use a 1/4, but if you're really worried about it, go ahead and do 3/8. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And then when we turn this right side out, we will have a box bottom on our bag and it'll look nice and stand up well. So I'm going to go finish these, but then let's talk about the lining. So the lining you cut, it is also cut 17 by 19.5. And you're going to take 2 pieces of that and you're going to put it right sides together like that. And just remember, the 19.5 is the width, the 17 is the height. And then when you're going to take it over to the sewing machine once you put the 2 pieces right sides together, and you're going to stitch around, leaving an opening for turning, and stitch around. Now I'm going to show you a trick I learned. I was just somewhere teaching, and Jan the bag lady, if you're watching, hello, showed me this trick. I gotta get my hands there so to focus. Focus. Hello. My goodness, my camera is being lazy today. Alright, there we go. So you stitch up to the edge, and then when you turn it right side out, it naturally will flip under and easier to sew shut. And I've done that on a couple projects now, and she's a genius. It works out perfect. So now my lining is sewn, and I got to do the same box corners that we did on the bag, and they need to match. So again, I'm going to take my ruler and mark a 2 inch here, and 2 inches here. Take my scissors and cut this. And cut this one. There we go. And then we're going to pull this open, and again align the side seam with the bottom seam, flipping the seam to the opposite directions. We're going to clip this together. This you could pin, but I already got the clip, so. And I'm going to go ahead and sew the 1/4 inch seam, and then my lining will be done and we can put the bag together. So let me go get the other pieces caught up to this point, and we will be back to put the bag together. Alright, so we left off with the box pleats that I clipped together. And oops, where's my camera? There we go. There's the box pleats that sewn together so that it makes a box bottom on your bag. And there's my little hole for turning, which I hope is big enough. So there's the lining, and then we did the same thing on the outer bag, which we can now turn the outer bag right side out. And this is why I like the foam. It gives it some definition and shape. And we're gonna do the same thing over here. Like that. There we go. So there's the outside of the bag. Next, we have our strap from earlier that I folded and top stitched. Now I'm just gonna fold it in half and cut it to make 2 short straps. Now, if you want longer straps, you'll have to cut 2 4-inch strips. I wanted it shorter because I'm already short, so I don't really need it to hang too low. Now, to put these on here, we're gonna actually measure this. I eyeballed my first one, so let's just see where we're at. So I put them 4 inches from the side. So there's one side, and then over here, I'm gonna guess that's 4 inches from the side, just a little bit more right there. And so there's the front strap. And then we do the same thing on the back. Now when I do the back strap, I don't need to measure. I can just align the back strap with the front. That way you know they line up right, whether you measure correct or not. Again, make sure you don't twist this, fold it, close this, and align it. So that's just a quickie way to get your front and your back straps on the bag. Now we want to make sure the straps are tucked down, pointing down, and we're going to slide the lining over the bag, and this should be right sides together, meaning the bag is right side out, the lining is wrong side out. We're going to slide this in here. It's like putting a pillowcase on. Oops, not doing very well. There we go. There we go. And the first thing you want to do is you want to align the side seam of the outer bag with the side seam of the lining. And we're going to clip it all the way around, and then we're going to sew it all the way around. And when you get to the straps, make sure the straps are tucked in between and out of the way. And you can just use that same clip. Make sure this side is aligned too. Okay. And you can just use the strip claps to kind of help you, and then, you know, line all the raw edges up, and you go all the way around. Then we just take this over to the sewing machine and we sew all the way around, which I've already done with this other one. So there we go. It's all sewn. And this is where the opening in the bottom will help you pull the bag right side out. So go slow and steady. It's a struggle sometimes, but it will come out. Now, if your bottom opening isn't wide enough, you may have to open it a little more. Just don't pull real hard, because I've been known to like pull it and rip the fabric, and you don't want to do that, because then you got to do your lining all over again. So just go slow and easy and pull it through, and eventually you'll get the bulk of it. And the foam does make it a little bit harder to do this, but it does give the bag such a nice shape. There, almost there. There we go. So there's my bag with a big old thread on it. And there's the lining. So now we need to push out the corners of everything. And that looks good. And then you're going to go over and top stitch this closed. Okay, we're going to just top stitch it closed, then we're going to shove it into the bag, and then I usually will press this and top stitch right around that top edge to give me a nice clean finish. So I'm going to go do that, and then we're going to be done with our tote bag and month 6 of Imagine. Alright, so here we are. This is the bag to go with month 6 for Imagine. I hope you will check out the links below to join the MulQueen Thread Collector Club, as well as the other projects and patterns that we've done with this. I cannot wait to get to the final quilt, but we are halfway there, and hopefully you're enjoying this sew along with me. Please leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think. As always, make sure you hit the bell to be notified for another video, like and subscribe. Leave me a comment below and let me know what you think of the Imagine Sew Along. I hope some of you are doing the projects. And what do you think of our tote that is now big enough to put 12-inch squares in? It is a 15 by 15 by 4. I thought it was a nice, good size. I am so excited to have one of my own, and this one is off to the store. So until next month, have a good time, happy sewing, and we'll see you soon.